Bungie was once the most admired game studio in the world.
One of the most eagerly awaited video games finally goes on sale.
We got it! Woo!
Sniper! Sniper!
Oh, no!
But today, Bungie is unrecognizable.
Bungie is cooked. This is like watching a train wreck in slow motion.
They are struggling right now, looking like me trying to reach the top shelf in my pantry.
Basically, steals assets from a singular lone artist without permission.
220 roles are being eliminated from Bungie.
Marathon could be the death of Bungie.
The people who made the company legendary have quietly left, one after another, like pieces of a puzzle falling away. What pushed Bungie's developers out of the door? Where did these amazing people go? And how did the studio that created Halo end up releasing a game like Marathon, a game that looks to be dead on arrival? Well, it all starts with Alex Seropian, the founder of Bungie. Now, Alex founded the company all the way back in 1991, long before Master Chief existed, long before Xbox was even an idea. He was just a college kid in a dorm room making a simple game called Gematsu. What a beauty. And instead of just uploading it somewhere random, Alex did something wild. He self-published it under the name Bungie. Just him, a floppy disk, and a mailing list. That was it. Talk about having some indie roots. In this moment, Bungie was born. Not as a studio, but as a mindset to build stuff Alex was passionate about. Soon after he published his first game, he met another student, Jason Jones, the other co-founder of Bungie we know. Jason at the time was coding an ambitious multiplayer game called Minotaur, and together they created some great games, from Pathways into Darkness to Marathon. Alex and Jason shaped Bungie into a team that punched way above its weight. They were a small crew with big ambitions, and the company became known for games that felt different, that were special. Bungie wasn't printing money yet. This wasn't the golden days of Bungie that we all know. And by the late 90s, they were running low on cash. Alex saw the writing on the wall. Bungie was going to survive. If Halo was going to be what it could be, he had to make a bold move. So he sold Bungie to Microsoft. That one decision saved the company and made Halo the crown jewel of the Xbox for 2 decades. But for Alex, that was the finish line. After Halo shipped, he quietly stepped away. And that's the thing people forget. Jason Jones didn't start Bungie. Alex Seropian did. And he didn't just build Bungie with Jason, he saved it. And when his work was done, he let go. Then there's Joseph Staten, a truly loved man in the Halo community and by me. Joseph gave Halo its soul. He crafted its iconic story. He wrote its dialogue and gave the universe this unique voice. But then out of nowhere, in 2013, he walked away from Bungie. And he wasn't the only one. Next came Marcus Leto. Joseph might have given Halo its story, but Marcus defined its look. He designed the architecture, the environments, and the most famously, Master Chief himself. Fans and industry peers have often called Marcus the father of Master Chief. Talk about some talent, having created one of the most iconic gaming characters of all time. But like Joseph, he left in 2012 and another domino fell for Bungie. And then the music stopped. Marty O'Donnell, the legendary composer behind Halo's unforgettable soundtracks, the man that gave us this, was fired. And the story gets worse. Jamie Geismer, who shaped Halo's core gameplay, the feel of its weapons, the enemies, the iconic level design, left in 2010. Mark Hoberman, the mind behind Halo's innovative multiplayer and UI, left in 2006. And Harold Ryan, who had climbed from test manager all the way up to president of Bungie, left in 2016. What the hell was happening at Bungie? It's impossible to deny a pattern here. Bungie was losing its lifeblood, its core talent, piece by piece. And it kept going. Michael Salvatore, Marty's co-composer, who created those iconic Halo scores alongside him, he left in 2023. Lorraine McLeese, the artist who designed the Halo logo itself, also left in 2023. Now just one original member from the old Bungie days remains. Jason Jones, Bungie's other co-founder. He's still there, just quietly working in the background. Everyone else, the creative force behind Halo's groundbreaking success, what made Bungie, they're gone. This company, once known as the rebellious underdog of game development, has become a corporate giant, a behemoth that looks to have lost nearly all of its original visionaries. How did that happen? What caused Bungie's greatest minds to walk away? Well, to fully understand, we need to look beyond Halo and explore what came next, when Bungie released Halo Reach. Now, when Bungie released Halo Reach, they stepped into a new era. They were finally free from Microsoft. They were an independent studio once again. But that independence came with a price. Halo was beloved by the community, but its development was brutally demanding. Bungie, for all of its success, was no stranger to intense crunch. And years of overtime took a pretty serious toll on its developers. Marcus Leto put it this way: "One of the reasons I left Bungie is that many of us have seen the bad side of extended crunch periods that would go on for months and months, and what kind of human toll that took. Even with the intense crunch periods, much of Bungie's core talent, the so-called dream team, was still intact. Fans still had huge expectations, and the studio itself was determined to deliver something groundbreaking, following their Halo swan song with Reach. And that game was Destiny." Yet freedom isn't always that freeing. With no more Microsoft backing, Bungie needed a new partner if they were going to fund this big project. So in 2010, they announced a massive 10-year exclusivity deal with Activision. This was going to be a decade-long deal built around a new franchise that Bungie hoped would rival the impact of Halo. Internally codenamed Tiger, this project was the beginning of Destiny. And Destiny wasn't just another shooter. It was this ambitious MMO shooter hybrid thing. Imagine Halo meets World of Warcraft. At least that's how they described it back then. Expectations soared. Bungie COO Pete Parsons set the bar incredibly high, saying, "We want people to put Destiny's universe on the same shelf as they put Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, or Star Wars." Talk about ambitious. But when Destiny finally released, players immediately sensed something was off. Let's get one thing clear. Destiny's gameplay was genuinely great. Bungie's tight controls, that satisfying gunplay, and those addictive missions were all there. The stuff they were really good at. But the story, it barely felt present at all. The writing fell flat. The voice acting felt disconnected, almost lifeless. Even with a heavyweight actor like Peter Dinklage voicing a main character, it felt hollow. This wasn't the Bungie fans knew. Destiny lacked that emotional punch, that charm, that unmistakable storytelling magic. Why? Joseph Staten. Joseph was the narrative heart of Halo. So naturally, Bungie had him crafting Destiny's universe and story too. And after years of work, Staten finally showed senior leadership, including Jason Jones, a 2-hour supercut of Destiny's story. They hated it. Bungie's leadership felt it was too linear, too campy, too unlike the MMO vision Jason Jones had in mind. Some Bungie devs loved it, others disagreed strongly. But what mattered was Jason Jones' opinion, and he was not a fan. They scraped almost everything Staten created. Years of work from one of the most talented writers in the industry was gone in an instant. They kept basic world building, but the core plot, completely rewritten. One problem though, Destiny was releasing it in just a year. They didn't have the time to write something new, something good, something to actually really rival Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings or any of those stories. That didn't stop them. So Jason Jones formed Iron Bar, a group of top leaders tasked with rapidly creating a new non-linear narrative. Characters were rearranged, major characters became minor, missions were cut or merged. One of Bungie's employees anonymously described the frantic rewrite as, "The priority was, hey, we have a bunch of content that we've spent millions of dollars on. We need to cobble it together in a way that is not going to break continuity. And we've got to do it quick." Missions were repurposed in a matter of months, and one dev bluntly described it as literally like making a Frankenstory. This story was no Star Wars. This was no Harry Potter. This was not Lord of the Rings, I can promise you. It was rushed, it was messy, and everyone knew it. Staten naturally was pissed. His team had been sidelined. The narrative was rewritten without the writers. The writing team Joe put together was ostracized. The story really was written without people that knew what they were doing. And side note, as a writer myself, this pisses me off. It's an example of non-creatives thinking they know better than the experts. So not surprisingly, Joseph Staten left Bungie. But Joseph Staten wasn't the only creative clashing with Bungie's management. Composer Marty O'Donnell had worked tirelessly with Michael Salvatore and even Beatles legend Paul McCartney on this special music suite for Destiny called Music of the Spheres. This epic composition was meant to debut with Destiny's trailer at E3 2013. But instead, at the last moment, Activision replaced the music of Paul McCartney and Marty O'Donnell with their own. Activision somehow thought they knew music better than one of the Beatles and the composer of Halo. Marty saw this as a betrayal, obviously, an overreach by Activision, stating, "I think we have an agreement with the fans that when we show the fans something, we're showing them Bungie's work. So obviously he was angry enough and pissed enough to publicly tweet about it, stating, "To be clear, the official Destiny E3 game trailer was not made by Bungie. It was made by the company that brought you Call of Duty." This tweet had fewer than 20 likes, so nobody saw this, but it rattled Bungie's leadership. Marty was suddenly seen as a PR liability. And then the final straw, Marty tweeted again. "I'm saddened to say that Bungie's board of directors terminated me without cause on April 11th, 2014. A bitter lawsuit followed over unpaid wages and shares. Marty eventually won, but his time at Bungie was over. Staten and Marty, two creative giants, were now gone. Yet Destiny, it continued. New iterations, expansions came, and Bungie tried to fix the damage they had created. But the cracks left by incredible talent leaving didn't heal, and internally things just continued to snowball. They continued to deteriorate. Now, crunch wasn't new to Bungie. It was the reason Alex Seropian and Marcus Leto both left. But Destiny took crunch to a whole new level. Why? Because Destiny wasn't just a shooter, it was also an MMO. And you know what MMOs need? Constant updates. You have DLCs, you have seasonal events, you have expansions. Content had to keep flowing, no matter what. Activision, known for pushing studios to their limits, hovered over Bungie, demanding results, more content, tighter deadlines. The pressure was relentless. Destiny's release kept getting pushed back from 2013 to March of 2014, and finally releasing on September of 2014. And even after the launch, Bungie couldn't breathe. Crunch continued for the first two DLCs, and then into the expansions, which got smaller and smaller with every iteration. Take the Taken King, originally planned as a massive update, featuring an entirely new planet and an expansive area on Earth and tons of more content. But over time, that vision shrank drastically, ending up as just one new location, the Dreadnought. Still impressive, but far from the ambitious plans Bungie initially had. Why was this happening? The first problem was their technology. The game engine and tools Bungie built Destiny on were an absolute nightmare. One insider vividly described it this way. Let's say a designer wants to move a resource node 2 inches. They first have to load their map overnight, literally 8 hours to import. Then if that didn't fail, it would take another 20 minutes to open the map. After moving the node 2 inches, another 20-minute compile followed. All of that for a half-second change. Worse still, Bungie had a contract bonus from Activision tied to Destiny getting a 90% Metacritic score, which is hard as hell to get, I might add. And Destiny landed around 77%, missing that mark and costing Bungie millions. Around this time, Bungie CEO Harold Ryan quietly exited. Some were excited to see him leave, others were sad. Regardless of the feelings, the tension between Bungie and Activision only grew deeper. Then came the release of Forsaken expansion in 2018. Bungie thought it was their best work yet, but Activision disagreed. In an earnings call, Activision expressed dissatisfaction, promising investors a faster content model and more aggressive monetization. It wasn't clear exactly what that meant for Bungie, but it definitely wasn't good. And it probably didn't help that they had Bobby Beluga breathing down their neck. Things finally reached a breaking point. In 2019, Bungie announced something huge after 8 long, complicated years. They were splitting with Activision, and Bungie would keep the rights to Destiny. They were free. With that newfound freedom, Bungie secured a major $100 million investment from NetEase for a brand new IP. Bungie finally got this breathing room and capital they needed to be their own studio. But deep-rooted leadership problems still lingered. And not long after Bungie parted with Activision, Sony stepped in and bought Bungie for a whopping $3.7 billion. It seems odd to make that deal when all you've been dying for is freedom for almost 20 years. But Sony's deal came with a unique twist. Bungie would be an independent subsidiary and remain fully autonomous. They could self-publish, and crucially, there would be no console exclusivity. On paper, this was the perfect scenario. Sony's resources, no Activision oppressive oversight, no Bobby, but unfortunately, things weren't perfect. Over the next couple years, Bungie consistently missed financial targets. Destiny 2's expansions like Lightfall drastically underperformed, falling 45% short of projections. So Bungie laid off 100 employees, around 8% of their studio. Then their final expansion, the Final Shape, performed even worse. So came even more cuts. CEO Pete Parsons announced, "Today, 220 of our roles will be eliminated. representing roughly 17% of our studio's workforce. In the same breath of making these layoffs, Parson also said, "Today, our focus is on supporting our people." Those statements were hollow as hell to employees who were walking their livelihood out the door, especially considering Parsons had just spent $2.3 million on classic cars and even locked his Twitter account after announcing the layoffs. Doesn't look good. And amid these layoffs, the remaining Bungie veterans finally left the company. Michael Salvatore, legendary co-composer of Halo's soundtrack alongside Marty, was fired. Lorraine McLeese, the artist behind the iconic Halo logo, was also let go. Fans were obviously outraged. They were confused and saddened. How had Bungie, this iconic, incredible studio, fallen so far? What was happening? Previously, fans blamed Activision, and before that, Microsoft, me included. I always blamed them for why and these downfalls and whatever's going on. But this time, the mess couldn't be pinned on Sony like it had been in the past on Activision and Microsoft. This was Bungie's doing. They were independently screwing themselves. Internally, Bungie's leaders had grossly overestimated their financial success when selling to Sony. And it explained why expansions like Lightfall fell so dramatically short of projections. But even worse, Bungie had secretly been developing 2 new IPs, Marathon and Matter, further straining resources. Layoffs weren't just reactive, they were planned. Even if Destiny's final expansion had blockbuster success, those cuts were still coming. And it gets worse. If Bungie can't stabilize financially, Sony gets to step in and fully take over the studio. That's part of their contract. That independence, that freedom that they've supposedly wanted for 2 decades, gone. If the studio does not reach certain financial goals, Sony can dissolve the split board and take full control. In hindsight, I think Sony drastically overpaid for Bungie. Sony bought Bungie for $3.7 billion. By comparison, Insomniac Games, a hugely successful studio, was purchased for $229 million. Why the discrepancy? Well, it happened during a frenzy of studio acquisitions. I mean, Microsoft was just buying everything at the time. So Sony reacted by trying to get something. So they bought Bungie. But in another timeline, without Sony stepping in, I think Bungie might have gone under. The real problem wasn't just bad financial forecasting or external pressure, it was deeper. Bungie has always made legendary games, often under awful conditions, right? Relentless crunch, tight deadlines, and broken content pipelines. Bungie had always struggled with scale. Jason Jones himself described Halo's development as buckets of blood. The initial scope of Halo 2 was massive but had to be dramatically scaled back. That issue has never been fixed, and it drove away so many key developers in the early years and then even in the later years. Even before Destiny, at its heart, Bungie was a studio that thrived creatively when it was small and rebellious, but it struggled as it scaled into a corporate giant. Leadership and talent clashed. Jason Jones wanted Destiny as a social MMO sandbox. Joseph Staten envisioned a cinematic, narrative-driven epic. Activision tossed aside Marty and Salvatore's painstaking crafted soundtrack. The executives never found compromise. They didn't listen to their talent, so the vision fragmented and the studio fractured. Bungie sacrificed creative vision for short-term gains, losing their cultural impact along the way. Players didn't care about Bungie because of their deals. They cared about the creativity, the vision, the people behind the studio. Bungie forgot that. So the question now is, after all this fallout, where did Bungie's legendary team go? The original Bungie team didn't vanish. They scattered, taking their vision and talent with them. Alex Seropian, Bungie's original founder, went on to build multiple studios, including Wide Load Games, Industrial Toys, and now Look North World, where he's still currently CEO. He's still passionate and still innovating, and very much in the game industry. Marty O'Donnell, the composer behind Halo's music, founded Highwire Games, alongside Jamie Greisemer, the man who shaped Halo's groundbreaking gameplay. Marty serves as the studio's creative director, bringing that classic Bungie spirit to their projects. Max Hoberman, who originally shaped Halo's multiplayer experience, founded Certain Affinity in 2006. Nearly 20 years later, that studio has grown to over 200 developers, continue to support massive franchises like Halo and Call of Duty. Joseph Staten, who gave Halo its narrative soul, now leads as creative director at Netflix Games, after his short stint at 343. He's now shaping new worlds and an entirely different landscape. Marcus Leto, the father of Master Chief, moved too, first founding V1 Interactive and now serving as a studio vice president at EA Battlefield, helping to shape the next era of AAA shooters. Harold Ryan, who served as Bungie's president during the turbulent Activision years, founded Probably Monsters, a unique game studio incubator, investing in new IPs, and prioritizing healthy work cultures to avoid Bungie's pitfalls. Even Mike Zack, an art director who helped define Halo's visual identity, joined 343 Industries to keep shaping the Halo universe at Microsoft. All these Bungie veterans, and many more I didn't list, moved on. They have continued to make meaningful impacts elsewhere. The industry recognized their value, even if Bungie itself seemed to forget. And yet, one person remains notably at Bungie, Jason Jones. the other original founder. He's still quietly working behind the scenes, but his studio, the Bungie of today, is unrecognizable compared to the legendary team he once helped build. And I wonder if he cares. This Bungie, the one that gave us Halo, that defined generations, that changed gaming forever, it's gone. The logo is the same, but the team behind it has fundamentally changed. And that brings us to now, Bungie's upcoming revival of Marathon, a groundbreaking series that defined the studio in its earliest days, long before Halo. Now Bungie is bringing it back, but this version isn't a continuation of the original story-driven experience. Instead, it's being rebooted as a multiplayer extraction shooter, leaning into current gaming trends rather than the single-player storytelling Bungie once mastered. Fans are skeptical, and for good reason. After Destiny's rocky path, the layoffs, the leadership struggles, and the creative disconnect, expectations for Marathon are pretty mixed at best, especially with a lot of the crazy stuff that's been going on lately. The core issue that fractured Bungie for years remains: the conflict between creative vision and corporate vision. Without the original creative team, without Staten's storytelling, without Marty's iconic music, or Marcus' visual design, or Mac's multiplayer brilliance, there's genuine concern over whether Bungie can deliver something truly special again. Marathon isn't just Bungie's next game, it's a test. It's Bungie's chance to prove if they still have that original magic. But everything we've discussed, the departures, the struggles, the crunch, the layoffs, it makes it really hard to believe Marathon can truly recapture what made Bungie great. The studio we once knew, the one responsible for some of gaming's greatest moments, now seems more focused on surviving than innovating. And maybe that's the harsh reality of it all. The Bungie making Marathon today isn't the Bungie we fell in love with. That legendary team is gone, making their mark elsewhere. And because of that, it's hard to see Marathon being the return to form we've all been hoping for. Bungie, one of my favorite developers, and probably one of your favorite developers, is gone. But remember, many of those talented people are still making games. We have even more great new indie studios rising to fill that gap of Bungie. Go support them. So many indies are making awesome stuff. I don't have the ability to show love to all the games and the studios that reach out to me, and there's a lot. I wish I could do better, but for this indie game highlight, here's a list of studios and games that have been released in the past year that are truly awesome. Pick one, go support the next Bungie. And as a developer myself, having just released my own game in early access, I know how hard it is to make games. And if you are at all interested in making a game yourself, you should check out Brilliant. They have been backing this channel for months, and with their support, we're giving half of what they pay us straight to the rising indie studios. Because Brilliant isn't just a sponsor. They genuinely care about learning. They don't just teach you what to know, they teach you how to think. For context, Brilliant is an interactive platform for anyone who wants to learn something new in STEM, whether it's game logic, algorithmic thinking, or just problem solving like a game dev. Brilliant makes you want to learn. They do a really good job. So if you've dreamed of making a game or just want to level up your brain in a smart way, check out Brilliant. Use the link in the description to get started for free. Thanks everyone. See ya.